from the Post-Millennial. Minnesota Bank and Trust moves to cancel MyPillow founders' bank accounts. The accounts in question are Lindell Management, Lindell Outreach, Lindell Recovery Network, Lindell TV, Lindell Foundation, Lindell Publishing, Frank Speech, Michael Lindell Personal, and My Store. It's kind of crazy. They've gone after everything associated with this guy. The announcement came on Friday's episode of War Room, where host and former Trump advisor Steve Bannon played a recording of a telephone call between a top executive at Minnesota Bank and Trust and Lindell's controller. The executive stated during the call that the bank, a subsidiary of Heartland Financial, had concerns about being connected with someone who could be in the news. Quote, not that the FBI is even sniffing and looking, but what if somebody came and said, do you know what? We are going to subpoena all of his account records and this and that, and then all of a sudden we make the news. So it's more of a reputation risk. I'll just tell you this. Minnesota Bank and Trust, I would never go anywhere near. If you're running a business and your bank gets shut down because they're scared of bad PR, do not bank with these people. And it's not just that. You think it's just because Mike Lindell's a big famous guy? CNN's gone after regular people over memes. So yeah, if a bank is saying we don't want to be involved with someone in the news, well, we know these media companies are willing to go after regular people and little old ladies. I would not feel safe banking with that company.
I don't believe the reputation excuse at all, especially when you look at the history of big banks, especially institutions like HSBC and their money laundering for drug cartels knowingly doing so. When you look at what they did with Jeffrey Epstein, especially Deutsche Bank, that literally had to settle a fine of over $150 million because they ignored all of his red flags. Jeffrey Epstein was able to bank with JP Morgan and Chase, Citibank, Deutsche Bank. He never got debanked. Who gets debanked? The MyPillow guy, and then people like Julian Assange that was debanked in 2010 politically when he was shut down by a Swiss bank. He was shut down by PayPal. He, of course, then went into Bitcoin and then had a 50,000% increase of his money and is estimated to have around $37 million because of that switch from Bitcoin. So again, this political debanking is nothing new. The big banks are, of course, tied into big government, the intelligence agencies, and I think this is another lesson showing that, yes, they all work together in many extensive ways, which is absolutely troubling because it's becoming more and more political by the day.
I think this is a big red flag for centralized banking in general. You see the amount of control that I think is desired from this. Like, if you want to buck the system and all the money is controlled by one person, then you don't get to have any money anymore and live in this world with no money. That's not how this world works. I don't like privatized banking at all at this point. Public banking.
Yeah, I would have a couple of things to say about that. One is the astonishing and really unfortunate thing is there is a certain case to the reputational argument, which is to say that in the present regime, you're worse off reputationally being Michael Lindell and associating yourself with Donald Trump in various ways than being somebody like Jeffrey Epstein. They're just as a result of the peculiar hierarchy of taboos that exists in the regime. And secondly, I think it really speaks to this point that anyone in Lindell's position who speaks out against the regime in various ways, debanking is what the United States government does to adversary governments. It is the domestic recapitulation of economic sanctions. And so it needs to be understood, I think, broadly in this context of the government and its associated institutions wielding its power domestically against American citizens for political purposes.
Do you think that the government told this bank to do this, or was this just a private bank making a decision?
Well, I mean, I think that this is all part of the same ecology. So the fact that banking institutions, that major platforms of the communication infrastructure aren't technically part of the government, they are part of the regime. And that's what's more relevant. And it's simply, if you reach the level of Michael Lindell, if you are a dissident on that level, you jeopardize your capacity to exist in any normal way. And having financial freedom and being able to bank is part of that. And so basically, Lindell's position is similar to the position of, say, the government of Iran, for instance. That's how I would interpret it. And functionally, it's the same. It's just, in Lindell's case, he's an American citizen. And in Iran's case, it is a foreign adversary, or at least allegedly an
Yeah,
adversary.
the public banking thing, I don't know if I'm a fan of.
Yeah, after I said it, I was like, not only public. I do
But
like the options.
Like non-profit banking, credit unions.
Non-profit banking.
That's
Imagine a
basically
bank that wasn't trying to profit.
Well, that's basically a credit union.
Yeah, thank you.
So for me, my credit union, it's like no ATM fees. I get international free ATM transactions, which is crazy because when I was traveling around for Vice and stuff, that was amazing. It was amazing. And the credit union industry they're able to absorb a lot of losses because they're not in it for a profit. So during all the Occupy stuff, they gained billions of dollars. People were switching over. I think that's one big move you can make, but there's still the problem of a credit union still being a private institution who can ban you. And so I think what we're seeing from here is the power of cultural enforcement over, say, legal enforcement. You don't need to make something illegal. You don't need to violate someone's rights to still violate their rights. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Joe Biden doesn't need to go to this bank and say, get rid of this guy, he's in my way. They need only put enough pressure. They need a reporter will call them up and say, why are you doing this? I broke this story. It was a few years ago. I think it was actually 4 years ago. It was Enrique Tarrio. He got banned from Chase because a quote unquote journalist sent an email basically threatening the bank, saying, why are you providing financial services to white supremacists? And the bank internally just said, terminate. We don't want to have anything to do with this. I understand why the bank freaks out. Journalists do this stuff as an attack, and they know they're doing it. The way they ask the question.
Right.
For what business, for what public good do we need to understand why a bank provides banking services to a person of a certain political persuasion? We don't. Everybody has a bank because people have banks. So a journalist who contacts a bank and asks those questions knows what they're doing and why they're doing it.
That's interesting the way you said everybody has a bank and uses a bank, because that's kind of what we believe, what we're brainwashed to believe growing up. But like you're saying, Darren, the government can just sanction anybody at any time, anything. And that's a common tool that it uses in the war against its adversaries is shut off the bank.
It's their favorite tool. If you look at
Right.
the way that the Americans have been kind of pushing their will on the world, economic sanctions, economic warfare are their main ways of achieving a lot
Right.
of their objectives. They go to a
Absolutely,
country
yeah.
and they say, hey, we're going to take away your ability to even have money in the world if you don't implement this policy. And this is what the United States does. This is nothing even compared to the World Bank and the IMF. And if you look at what, the stories of the economic hitman, if you look at what really happens behind the scenes with a lot of these banks and powerful people all around the world, it is absolutely corrupt and sinister to see the corruption that really is happening that we don't even know about.
Right. It's the analog. So what happens to Lindell, and there are various other cases, he's not the first, as you point out. It is the analog to, using the leverage of the SWIFT system to cut out, foreign adversaries, or to use that leverage to pressure them to do something we want. It's an extension of the same basic principle and done for the same reasons.
Do you have any information on the SWIFT banking system? Maybe a brief overview. I know a little bit about it. I believe that it kind of oversees Visa and MasterCard.
Right. It's just, the United States government essentially controls it. It's essential for any kind of transactions that go through, particularly in dollars. And it's a major part of being able to participate in the global economy. And particularly in the past 5 years or so, the United States has really leaned on economic sanctions because there's no appetite for war since Iraq. There's just no public appetite for war. And so it's sort of the middle ground that they can use to really be severe but not send troops into a place. And so they've leaned on these sanctions. And the cost is it really puts pressure on the U.S. dollar. There's only so much pressure the dollar can take having to sustain the United States foreign policy objectives before the pillars collapse. But they've been leaning on it very hard, and the result is Russia and China have been talking and cooperating and thinking about developing alternatives to the SWIFT system and so forth. So ultimately it might be counterproductive, but we love to sanction people economically overseas, and that's what you see more domestically, because the domestic political adversaries like Michael Lindell are considered enemies in just the same way that the U.S. government considers Iran an enemy.
I remember, 12, 13, maybe even long, maybe it was even like 14 years ago. Alex Jones is talking about one world currency, global currency. All these people on the internet were talking about the Amero, that there was going to be a Canadian, Mexican, and American currency. And that always confused me, because I was like, can't you just use your credit card any country you go to? And so within only a few years, I'm traveling around the world working for Vice, and I got a Visa card, and I go to all these countries and swipe it with no questions asked. I walk in, I'd say, let me get the schnitzel when I'm in, Israel, whatever, and then swipe, no questions asked, no problem, just right there. And then I started telling my friends when I'd hear people say like, yeah, one of these days they're gonna have a one world currency, and I was like, bro, it's called Visa and MasterCard.
No.
You can go to any one of these countries, just use it.
Right.
It's here, it's happened already.
Wait till you learn about Bitcoin, Tim.
And I've been telling people Bitcoin is the perfect global store of value. Decentralized, instant, trackable. And when they've got AI that is tracking all of the transactions, they know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and you don't even realize. People are like, I can use Bitcoin to buy things you're not supposed to buy. It's like, dude, they know who you are.
That's if you let people know your address. So if no one knows your address, you
Not
could
true.
still... Well, there's different ways of finding out. Amazon and Jeff Bezos are working on a lot of different technological advancements that would kind of break Bitcoin and make sure they could track, trace, and database everything. So there are exceptions to the rule.
I would say at this point, Bitcoin itself is broken in that capacity. It's not private. A lot of, ANCAP's libertarians thought it really was, but they don't need to know your address to see the transactions made and then have an AI just calculate it was you based on the things you post on social media, based on the phone you use, your MAC address. They can easily track this stuff.
They're working on that technology. I haven't heard of them developing it or using it yet, to be honest.
Let's be real. Are they going to publicly disclose they can do it already? No, but it's not that hard to calculate. If Facebook is already, so I'll tell you something funny. I ordered these little cards. They're really, really cool. It's a black card. It's got a joint in the middle and on the sides, and you flip it and it forms this like kite shape. And then you can pull the sides up, and it's got two little holes where you can put your phone and use it as a tripod. It's so awesome. It like flips around. You can manipulate it, and you can take your phone, set it up so you can, record yourself with your phone or record people with your phone. The funny thing is, I posted a video to my Instagram of me playing my guitar, and I was trying to set my phone up, and I'm like, this is so annoying. Like, how do you get your phone to stand up? And then within an hour, I never said anything to anybody about this. I didn't go, gee, I sure need a tripod or some kind of stand for my phone. I get an advertisement on Instagram being like, buy this to set your phone up. And I was like, that's really weird. It's not because they're reading your mind or listening to you. I never said any words about this. It's because there are algorithms that just know based on your behaviors. There's the famous story of the guy, this father. He gets maternity advertisements in the mail for his daughter. And he's like, why are they sending my daughter maternity stuff? So he complains, and they were like, oh, sir, it's because our computer identified your daughter's pregnant. That's it. And he was like, how? The things she was looking at, and it wasn't, this is the crazy thing. She wasn't looking up diapers. She wasn't looking up anything. She didn't know she was pregnant. The algorithm knew that when women start looking up certain items, certain foods, before they even realize it, the computers know they're pregnant and sent the information to her dad because she still lived with them. So I'm telling you, man, with Bitcoin, if you think they don't know who you are and what you're doing, you are wrong.
No, it's all public.
But there's Zcash, there's Monero, and those are a lot better.
They get banned. They have been in the past getting banned from trading networks, unfortunately.
Right. Yep, Monero in particular, and that's the thing is, once you reach a level like Monero and you're actually a threat, it becomes a national security issue. And so they try in the periphery. They'll ban it from all the major exchanges. It's particularly hard to get if you're in the U.S. And then if it persists, then it becomes, a mechanism for terrorism financing, and they'll go after it more aggressively.
Or they'll just say it's a mechanism.
So that's the ultimate bottleneck is once something becomes a national security threat, all bets are off.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.